explained. So the Shaykh then explains something very, very important and very, very dangerous. And what this will tell us is the extreme importance to the affairs of Tawheed and Aqeedah. So he says, there's no doubt that the issues of belief, issues of i'tiqad, they are connected to the heart. The issues of creed that we discuss as part of our belief, they are connected to the heart. And the heart is something that is very easy to change. It changes suddenly and quickly. And that's why it is referred to as al-qalb, something that turns and changes. It is very swift in taqallub, meaning turning and changing. For that reason, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to make dua, Ya muqallib al-qulub, farrigh qulubana ila ta'atik. Or Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. O turner of the hearts, empty our hearts, meaning make our hearts inclined to your obedience. Empty our hearts except with your obedience, So make our hearts only full of your obedience. Or in another wording, O turner of the hearts, make our hearts firm and established upon your deen. And other such words which have come in the hadith. So the heart is something that quickly changes. And we see that the speech of the heart, the action of the heart, the belief of the heart is something that can very quickly change. Why is this? The real reason is because it is all built upon ilm. And ilm, knowledge, it can benefit and then it disappears. Right? Knowledge, you acquire a bit of knowledge and that knowledge is forgotten. It leaves, it goes. Or every time you leave something from knowledge or you neglect something from knowledge, then that will have an effect upon the heart. So, when a person leaves and abandons the affairs of Aqeedah, that will then affect the Aqeedah of the heart. A person neglects the affairs of Aqeedah. This now affects the heart. Either it will affect because there is deficiency in knowledge, and because of that deficiency, therefore, this will now affect the certainty of the heart. The yaqeen of the heart will be affected. And because he has neglected that knowledge, then he will not be holding belief in that which is true. So he is missing those elements now. And likewise, in the absence of that knowledge, maybe a shubha will come to him, some doubt or some misconception. And because of the absence of the relevant knowledge, or because of the weakness in knowledge, he will now be affected by that shubha. And shaitan, the thing which he rejoices most is when a person, he quickly, his heart changes. When his heart changes. Because when his heart changes, then his limbs change after that. And this is in accordance with the hadith, Ala wa inna fil jasad mudghah idha saluhat saluha al jasad. Indeed, there is in the body, when a morsel of flesh, when it is correct and rectified, then all of the body, saluha al jasad kullu, all of the body will be rectified. And when it is corrupt, وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدْ كُلُّهُ أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبِ. And then all of the body will be corrupt. Indeed, it is the heart. So this shows that the corruption of the heart, it is by way of shubuhat and shahawat. Shubuhat and shahawat. And these are the doubts and the desires. Doubts and the desires. So when a shubha, when a doubt or a misconception is presented to the heart, and then it takes root in the heart, then knowledge will decrease. Or the heart will become corrupt. And the greatest things in which there are shubuhat are the affairs of Aqeedah. right? The greatest affairs in which there is shubuhat, in which a person receives shubuhat, is in the affairs of aqidah. And for that reason, it's for this very reason that the scholars, the leading scholars, the people of knowledge, the people who give advice to the ummah, who give advice to the leaders of the Muslims and to the common folk of the Muslims, they always advise the concern with tawheed and aqidah. Always. Because it is that thing which is quickest to change in the heart. The heart, these matters. Because why? A heart is something that forgets. Or the heart might only remember things in terms of the mujmalat, generalities. Right? In general, when you learn knowledge, you find that you will be able to recall the generalities of knowledge. And as for the specifics, you tend that you don't really recall them. Many people don't recall the specifics. This is just the nature of knowledge. The specifics can be forgotten. Right? So for example, a person might be able to say, well, yes, I know that al-qadar, it is to believe that Allah knows everything and everything is written down and everything is through Allah's will and through His creation, that what He creates to be and to bring about. So in general, you remember some of the general things. But then when it comes to the specific details now, to do with this topic, a lot of the tafsilat that relate to, for example, how the Jabariyya erred and how the Qadariyya erred and, the specific things, you tend not to recall those things. And so this is the nature of knowledge in the attributes, in the sifat, in some other things like that, to do with the Sahaba and so on and so forth. So this is just the general nature of these matters of Tawheed and Aqidah. And so because of that, when these things are not remembered, and then on top of this you find that a person has sins as well, because sins now, they enter into the mix as well. There are sins which are affecting a person's heart. He's committing sins. And those sins now are putting spots, blotches upon his heart. And sins, they tend to blind a person from seeing the truth. And then on top of that, you might see that a shubha comes along. A shubha comes along now. And that shubha now comes into his heart as well. So you can see now that all these things now, there's a mixture of all of these things. Right? There's jahl, there's, there's no detailed knowledge because it's forgotten or it's been corrupted and written over by way of sins that a person is committing. It's mixed and confused. And then a shubha comes along and all these things are now, are in the heart. And what happens from here is that a person now is harmed by this. Right? He's harmed bit by bit, bit by bit. So the shubuhat and the shahawat. Shahawat, sins. You follow your desires. Shubuhat. Right? They come together and a person harms himself. And this is why the greatest supplication and the first supplication in the Quran is the supplication for guidance to the straight path. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. This is the very first supplication in the Quran, in Surah Al-Fatiha. And this supplication is asking for guidance, that a person is guided to the path which is Al-Islam, which is the Quran, which is the Sunnah. It is Islam and Iman. And the Quran and the Sunnah have many, many details. And we know that Islam and Iman, the issues to do with them, Islam, is connected to the heart, is connected to the limbs, connected to action, and Iman is connected to the heart, connected to, so this is the issue of Islam and Iman, which we've dealt with previously. But the point being here that when we look at the Quran, we see the Quran and the text, they have issues to do with Tawheed, they have issues to do with belief in the unseen. All of these are matters of belief. And when a person asks for guidance to the straight path, then he is sincere to Allah, he humbles himself to Allah, he desires the truth. And when he asks for all of this, then it is from Allah's mercy, Allah's compassion, that he has made this particular dua the very first dua in the Quran. The very first question which is asked in the Quran, that we ask, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. This is the first question in the Quran. And likewise in the prayer, in the salah, the first wajib question in the salah is this question. As for the opening supplications in the prayer, they are not wajib. They are recommended, they're not wajib. Right? But as for that which is wajib, which is Surah Al-Fatiha, the first question that a person asks in the prayer is this ayah. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, the first wajib question in the prayer as well. All of this indicates how great and mighty this dua is. And that's because the heart, لأن القلب يتقلب, it is something that changes. Al-iman yataghayyar, iman changes. And Islam, it changes. And all of this is because, as we said, the weakness of knowledge and the weakness of applying this knowledge, and so on and so forth. And that's why you see, look at the words of Imam al-Tahawi, rahimahullah, at the very end of his speech. What does he say? He says, نسأل الله تعالى أن يثبتنا على الإيمان ويختم لنا به ويعصمنا من الأهواء المختلفة. What does he say? He makes this dua. He says, we ask Allah the Most High to make us firm upon Iman and to seal for us, meaning to seal our lives upon this Iman, and to protect us from the variant desires. So we see here this great Imam. This is the way of the people of knowledge, the Rabbani scholars. They ask Allah for thabat, for firmness upon Iman. And, he's already explained this aqidah. He's explained this creed. He's explained all of these affairs which a person is in need of. And he's asking Allah to seal his life upon it. And this is because At-Tahawi knows, as do the scholars, the great Rabbani scholars, they know that Iman can be stripped out of a person's heart. It can be taken out completely, or it can be taken, incompletely, in parts. Or maybe some of the details of Iman can be taken out and forgotten, or maybe some of the parts of Iman can be taken out and forgotten from his heart. So because they recognize this, they make dua with this great and mighty dua. This dua in which a person asks for a thabat upon Iman, and to be free and protected from the various opinions and desires which misguide. So he mentioned here, the Shaykh mentions the various sects which were present in his time, the Qadariyya, the Jahmiyya, the Jabariyya, the Qadariyya, and likewise those like them from the Khawarij, Rafida, and people like them. So any person who has knowledge of all of this, then he will have fear. The one who knows these affairs will have khashya, he will fear for himself, because shaitan is eager to misguide a person, and a person is weak. We are weak, and shaitan is very eager to misguide a person. So every time the situation is like this, then it is wajib upon the servant to ask and to make this dua, and that he basically does two things. There are two things he must do in order to save himself. First of them is al-ilmun nafi', to pursue beneficial knowledge. To pursue beneficial knowledge of the correct aqidah, of at-tawheed with its evidences from the kitab and from the sunnah. And that should be apparent in his heart. It should be apparent in his heart. It should be, this knowledge should be something clear and apparent in his heart, meaning that he doesn't have any shubha in his heart in respect to the affairs of knowledge. And, he returns back to this knowledge, and he makes sure there's no gaps in this knowledge, such that shaitan can come and enter into any kind of little crevice or nook or cranny or something like this. So, importance to al-aqidah as-sahiha. Affairs of tawheed, affairs of iman, affairs of aqidah, and so on and so forth. Second, whilst he is bringing this wasila of knowledge, whilst he is acquiring this knowledge, then he also must seek protection by way of Allah, and ask Allah that he does not cause his heart to be misguided. Oh Allah, do not cause our hearts to deviate after you have guided us. So he makes this dua to Allah, and he makes istighatha. He seeks protection from Allah that he does not cause his heart to deviate after knowledge and guidance. After having knowledge and guidance. So he must make this dua as well. And these are the two means by which he is eager upon his firmness upon this deen. So after this, the Shaykh then goes on to say that all of this indicates the great danger, and anyone who knows the true estimation of Allah and what He possesses of names and attributes, and he knows the effects of these names and attributes in His creation, and he knows how many hearts have been turned and how many people have been misguided and how many hearts have deviated. When he knows all of these affairs, then it will show him the graveness of this particular issue. So the Shaykh then makes a dua that we ask Allah Azza wa Jal by way of His names and attributes that He makes us firm upon Iman, and He seals our lives and likewise those of our parents and our loved ones upon this Iman, and protect us from the various opinions and the desires and the lowly madhahib, lowly doctrines. And he says that when we look at the Imam of the Hunafa, the Imam of those who are upright upon Tawheed alayhi salam, we see that he made dua with this supplication. And he's speaking about Ibrahim alayhi salam, who said, وَجْنُبْنِي وَبَنِيَّ أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامِ رَبِّ إِنَّهُنَّ أَضْلَلْنَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ النَّاسِ. And protect me and my offspring from that we should worship idols. For indeed, O Lord, they have misguided many amongst mankind. This is Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Imam of the Hunafa, the Imam of those who are upright upon Tawheed, who is not of the Mushrikeen, he's of the Muslimin and the Hunafa. And in this ayah, we see that Ibrahim alayhi salam mentions here how many of the idols and the false deities, they have misguided many amongst the people. Why? Because the hearts are affected by them, or that these idols, these things which are worshipped, have awliya, they have people, allies, they have people, followers who worship them, who spread these shubuhat, who spread these doubts, and they then affect the hearts. So Ibrahim al-Islam, he asked his Lord to protect him and his offspring from that they should be put to trial in this manner and be led to worshipping the idols. And this shows the great fear of Ibrahim al-Khalil alayhi salam from this type of zayr, this deviation which creeps into the heart. And yet Ibrahim alayhi salam is who he is. He is, al-Khalil, he is the friend of Allah Azza wa Jal. He's the one who is chosen by Allah Azza wa Jal. And likewise, we see that Ibrahim at-Taymi from the Tabi'een, rahimahullah, when he came across this ayah and he explained this ayah, as is narrated by At-Tabari in his tafsir, he said, وَمَنْ يَأْمَنْ الْبَلَاء بَعْدَ إِبْرَاهِيمِ. Who is safe from trial after Ibrahim? Who is secure from trial after Ibrahim? This is what he said. And this shows that a person who is sincere to, who would want to give himself advice to himself firstly, and then to the ummah, and then to the leaders of the Muslims, and to the general folk, in truth, then he will give them the advice to be concerned with the tawheed of Allah Azza wa Jal, the tawheed which is the right of Allah upon His servants, and to purify the hearts from all false beliefs, because the hearts are rectified by this tawheed and by having an aqidah which is secure and free from any, from anything which is corrupt. And any person who is like this, his heart is like this, of sound belief, then even if his action is very, very small, then his reward will be mighty with Allah, and it will have barakah, right? This purity of tawheed and purity of belief is a great and mighty affair, and its reward is tremendous. And this is because in small amount of in deeds which are good and which are built upon this purity, Allah will bless it, He will increase it, and He will multiply it when the heart is salim, when the heart is safe and secure from all these, from, the doctrine of the Jahmiyyah, the doctrine of the Jabariyah, the doctrines of the Mu'tazila, the doctrines of the Ash'aris, the doctrines, and when the heart is salim like this, and secure and safe from all these blemishes, and these corruptions, and these ara, these opinions, and these ahwa, these desires, then even if the deed is small, little, then Allah Azza wa Jal will bless it, will increase it, will multiply it many fold. And this is because of the purity in creed, purity in tawheed. But as for when the action is tremendous, the action is great, and action is plentiful, alongside an aqidah which is fasida, corrupt aqidah, then this does not consider anything. فَإِنَّ هَذَا لَيْسَ بِشَيْءٍ. This amounts to nothing, amounts to very little. So this is the reality of the affair. And so with that final note,